Okay, welcome back to my role manging. That's not what I normally say. Most people would start this video over, but that's not how we operate. Welcome back to role manging for Call of Cthulhu 7th edition, Horror on the Orient Express, fun times and adventures. Okay, so last time we had kind of the skeleton crew. There wasn't many there, and we did the Doom Train scenario. Well, two of them did the Doom Train scenario. And so that was exciting. It was just kind of good, clean fun, really. A few people died that didn't need to die. And it really was completely pointless, but it was fun. This time, though, they boarded the Orient Express. So they all met back together, discussed some stuff, and then they went to the Gare de Lyon station, and there they boarded the Orient Express in all its grandiosity and luxuriousness and everything. And they were introduced to their conductor, Giuseppe Oligak, who is a good guy. He'll do anything for them. That's what he's there for. It's not easy becoming a conductor on the Orient Express. You got to be... you got to have all your shit straight. You got to speak like 6 different languages. I'm slightly exaggerating, but not as much as you think. They have to know like at least 3 pretty damn well. So Giuseppe, of course, speaks 6 pretty fluently. Some other ones, Okay, so, yeah, so they boarded the Orient Express, and they got acquainted with their personal compartments, their sleeping compartments, and they saw a woman board the train as well into first class, who was greeted by a crowd throwing flowers and all sorts of stuff like that. Obviously somebody important, and so, of course, the investigators swooped right in to introduce themselves. A beautiful, wealthy lady. She introduced herself as Caterina Cavallaro, the opera singer, who was mentioned by the Lorians, interestingly enough. And so they kind of all spent the night drinking and laughing and sharing stories in the saloon compartment, or the saloon carriage. And finally, Caterina, they get real buddy with the whole group, and then finally, it was actually really funny. It was really hilarious to me. If you watch Secret's Role Main, I already read this, but it's funny. Oh yeah, okay, so at about 2 in the morning, she sways to her feet, says she'll be back in a moment, and 15 minutes later, she sweeps in dressed in a silver gown, eyes heavily darkened with mascara, with an ankh on a chain about her neck. And so the whole group was just like, it's a trap. She's going to sing the song that brings down the 7 hells upon the planet, or, opens up the nightmare realm and reaps out our eye socket. It was really funny. And basically what she said was pretty important, but I'm sure they all ignored it. So I'm not going to repeat what she said, because that would only give them, a chance to know really what's going on. If you missed it the first time, sorry. It was kind of important. Gotta pay attention to everything, man. And she sang the song that she'll sing in a few days at the opera. So this is like a private, personal concert from Pavarotti or some shit. This is a huge honor that they get blessed upon. They just hopped on the Orient Express. They didn't even really have to pay for it. Some other guy paid for it, and boom, here they are. It's pretty crazy. And I gave them all back a sanity just for hearing it, because that's how beautiful it was. And she tells them that she's going to book them rooms in a hotel in the Galleria, the very center of Milan, and she's going to get them front row tickets to the opera. So apparently, yeah, they really bonded. And she heads off to bed. So the other guys, they kind of all stayed up for a little bit more, drinking and laughing, playing cards, and finally they went back to their rooms and fell asleep. And then they woke up But they didn't wake up on a train. Oh no, they woke up in a town. A sleepy little town named Ulthar. So they all had. This was really cool. This was really cool. I know that in Secrets of Role Mangging and like the last couple ones and stuff like that, and probably some other places, I've talked about the Dreamlands. And so I don't really get to hear any of like viewers' reactions, like no, there's no like conversation there about your reaction to hearing about the Dreamlands and what goes on there and stuff like that. But here in tonight's session, we had a player, William Barth, Charlie Chalk, who didn't know anything about the Dreamlands at all. He knew nothing about it, and I got to just hear his real-time reactions to me explaining it. And, kind of going through the little steps and understanding it. And it was pretty awesome, I gotta say. Because he's just like, I thought this was like just a dream. And it's like, oh, it is. Because his only experience with dreaming is from the Mask campaign, which is like you put on, you get these dreams of like, horrific visions or something like that, or you're speaking to the Black Pharaoh, or you put on the mask and you have those visions. That's his experience. But this is, none of the players they've never experienced anything like this. But I think they were all somewhat familiar with the Dreamlands. Maybe not. I don't know. But William Barth was the really vocal one. And so, yeah. So they wake up in... They just wake up and they're walking on these cobbled streets. And there's like this thick mist all around. And there's like this golden glow covering the whole place. And there's like a bubbling brook nearby. And it's like it's like a painting. They're like walking through a painting, basically. The problem is there's cats everywhere. There's cats everywhere, and every single one of them, all four of them, succeeded on their dexterity rolls to not step on a cat. I was really happy, because that would have sucked, because I don't want them to step on cats. That just messes things up. So that was good. And then they keep walking until they go up to a platform, much like the Orient Express platform, but they notice there's no tracks. Weird. And there's all sorts of other... There's a bunch of cats there, as well as 3 other people. And the people just kind of, nod at them, blah, blah, blah. And then the train arrives. And I'll read this description for the train. I've read it like 5 times, like 3 of them have been out loud, stuff like that. A heavy regular thump comes from the mist. Something huge and unseen shakes the earth with heavy tread. Then multiple funnels of steam jet out over the station in all directions. These are not from the funnel of any earthly train. A monstrosity emerges from the mist, a bloated, bulbous mass, an octopus, centipede, spider kind of thing, all like jelly, made up of separate, wriggling ropes all squashed together. Golden eyes roll with its bulk, and multiple maws open and shut. It stomps along on dozens of stumpy limbs that fold in and out of its body. The beast looks as if it were dredged upon from some unfathomable abyss of the sea. Tentacles writhe freely all around its front and flanks. Behind the beast, its tentacles are entwined with a second beast that follows, and a third, and a fourth. An entire train of the beasts emerge as the mist shreds around their massive forms. These grotesque creatures... Oh, okay. Yeah, so they're pretty fucked up. And I think in the last Secrets of Role Mangging, I was trying to find the box for Horror on the Orient Express, because it shows pretty much these creatures. And the reason I couldn't find it is because the camera is resting on top of it, so it still is. And so if you just look up Horror on the Orient Express, you'll find the cover of it. You can see what I think that's what they're supposed to look like. So these things pull in, and they have, on top of these beasts, are giant ivory pavilions. And this is where the actual train is. You don't go inside the beast. You're on pavilions on top of the beast. And then a guy comes down off of the pavilions and introduces himself as Henry Peters. He gives them a ticket. He gives them the Dreamlands Express ticket for free. It's your free ticket. And so that I give them all this handout. Because this ticket basically explains all the rules of what they're about to go through. And so, again, it was so funny listening to him just kind of read through this and be like, what is this? I'm so confused. It was hilarious. I'll read it. Human dreamers, or once human dreamers whose waking self is now dead, may travel the Dreamlands Express for free. In order to journey on the Dreamlands Express, you must board while asleep on the Orient Express. Once you have slept on the Orient Express, you may return to the Dreamlands Express at any time from any bed in the waking world. Once you have boarded the Dreamlands Express, you return to the same express even if days, weeks, months, or years have passed. You may use your ticket to journey between the cities and the train serves: Ulthar, Dilathleen, Zar, Aforet, Thalarian, Zura, Era, Sonanil, and Saranian. And that is in order for those curious. Those are the places the train will stop. So they depart from Ulthar. The first stop is Dilathleen. If you stay on the train beyond Saranian, it is assumed you wish to discard your fears in the Gulf of Nodens. Beyond Saranian, there is no return. At journey's end, you will return to the waking world. After visiting the Gulf of Nodens, you cannot board the train again, even as a paying customer, as that would negate the sacrifice you made. This is a bargain made with Nodens. It is non-negotiable. Yeah, so it seems to imply that if you go to the Gulf of Nodens at all, you can never ride again. But then it also seems to imply that if you go there and you toss your thing in, then you can never go in again. So I don't know. It says it somewhere. I don't remember where. Probably somewhere. And so then I started kind of explaining stuff, and finally it dawned on him, was like, this is like a whole other game that we can play? And I'm like, yeah, basically. I mean, the Dreamland stuff is not nearly as long as the actual campaign, but yeah, it's basically a separate game. That's a good way to think of it. Yes. And so, okay. So they board the train afterwards, and it's very much styled after the real Orient Express, except everything is bigger. Basically, everything is bigger and much better, even than the Orient Express. So it's quite an experience. It's otherworldly. And into their sleeping compartment enters a man who they saw at the platform. And he introduces himself as Karakov. And they all, I think, liken to Karakov very quickly because he's a cool guy. He's very robust and vocal and Russian, and he's a good guy. He's a good friend to have, that Karakov. And so he's like, Dingleberry, time for drinks, you know. And so they go and they go to the saloon car, the male saloon car. There's a female one as well, and there's hookahs in there, and all sorts of the best alcohol you will ever consume in your life, and even the bar food on the Dreamlands Express is venison, ribs, and mighty loaves of brown bread. With every condiment imaginable. And the bar food is amazing. And so they talk to Karakov a bit. And then they go over to talk to the other guy who's sitting there drinking alone, Mac. And this guy's a heavyset Scottish fellow. Kind of keeps to himself, but they talk to him quite a bit, and he doesn't really feel like talking, but he does mention that he served in the Great War as a courier, and they get some information about Karakov from him. Apparently, Karakov in the waking world is an arms dealer. Yeah, he's a warmonger, and so, obviously, Mac doesn't really like him, but this didn't bother the others in the slightest. Oh, like, oh, yeah, warmongering, yeah! And they find out that the Mac's briefcase is handcuffed to his wrist, and that is his dream artifact, and he plans to toss it into the Gulf of Nodens. And so they kind of find out about these dream artifacts, that they could construct them as well, and they could make it representing, you know, any of their fears or their guilt or any of their emotions or past incidents, memories, anything like that. They could base it off of that, And then once they get to the Gulf of Nodens, they toss it in, and they are relieved of that burden. So if you have a memory of, you know, shooting your little brother in the face, I don't. This is not experience. I don't know. I just threw something out there. If you have a memory of that and it's just haunted you your whole life, you could make a dream artifact that represents that. And it could be anything. And you get to the Gulf of Nodens, and you just toss that in, and you forget that. You forget completely about that ever happening. I think I made a reference to Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind at some point. I don't know. That's probably still applicable. Anyways, they eventually stop talking to Mac, and the banquet bell rings. The dinner bell rings. And so they go there. And normally there would just be a dinner, but since this is some new dreamers' first night on the Dreamlands Express, there is a glorious banquet. And so the banquet menu for this first banquet is cream of turtle soup, grilled elephant pad stuffed with truffles and sweetbreads, spit roasted pheasant, quail, and partridge, boar's head a la mode, fruits, nuts, and spices from Siddharthian groves, sauces prepared by the subtlest cooks suited to the palate of every feaster. Drinks are pearls from wave-washed metal dissolved in the vinegar of Thrace, and the wines of Sarub, Implan, the Carthian Hills, and Mount Aran. Zug Moontree wine is served as well. And so they all kind of settle in and feast. And it is glorious. It like, there's no comparison. Nothing in the real world will ever compare to the quality of stuff on the Dreamlands Express. And I really kind of hammer that in. So whenever they go back to the real world, they feel real shitty. It's like, and this is what I imagine. Like, I don't know if I talked about this in Secrets or anything like that, but I feel like I might have. In Shadowrun, I've talked about this. I think I talked about this in the Shadowrun Let's Play, or what Shadowrun Returns. In Shadowrun, there's this thing called BTLs, or Beetles, where it stands for Better Than Life. And these are kind of like Matrix things, or it's kind of like virtual reality or something like that, where you kind of just like plug these things into you with implants or whatever, you know, machines, however, and you experience these Beetles, these BTLs. And these BTLs are kind of like holograms, I guess, in a way. They can be constructed to do whatever thing. They could be any sort of scenario, like fly over the Grand Canyon, or, you know, boom, there it is, you're flying over the Grand Canyon. And it's like exactly like that. But the real thing is, like, they can also represent or bring about like a pure, unadulterated emotion or feeling. Like, if there's a happiness BTL where it's just pure 100% happiness injected into your brain, more or less. And like, it's a rampant problem in the Shadowrun universe because people, that's why I don't think they're advertised as BTL. Oh, they might be, I don't know. But they are better than life because there's no way you could ever achieve that in real life. It's impossible. And so that's kind of like Dreamlands. And so in Shadowrun, people just get completely addicted to this. They spend all their money and all their life just on these things, and then they die. That's it, because they don't work, they don't do anything else. They're like the worst form of junkies. And so I said that once humanity in our real world invents something like that, that's basically a downfall of our society, because why not? I would do it. Hell yeah. Life sucks, man. Give me 100% pure happiness. Which I interpret as just a week with Scarlett Johansson, but I don't know if that's the official description. How did I get on? Dreamlands, right. So Dreamlands is just better than real life in almost every single way. Like, you get on this Dreamlands Express for free. You don't spend, like, there's no worry. Everything is catered to your every single whim, and it's better than anything could ever be in real life. It's like, why would you ever leave? And they realize this as well, but unfortunately the campaign goes on, and so they have to leave sometime. So they have the banquet, it's amazing, blah, blah, blah. They drink some of the Zug Moontree wine, and so some of them pass out. And then I think Ziggy encounters this little kitten that's trying to get into the kitchen, but he gets shooed out, and he's just really adorable, and Ziggy's petting him, and that will have significance later, trust me. And then they all kind of pass out from just basically the best night of their lives that they've ever had, and then they wake up in the real world, where things are not nearly as good. It's cold, and they're in Switzerland, which is good. I mean, being in Switzerland on the Orient Express is as pretty good as normal life can get, but okay. So they're in Lausanne, and they go to first they go to the guy's house, Edgar Wellington's house, 50 Rue Saint Etienne, which is a taxidermist shop. But they get there too early. Nobody's really awake. So they go and they leave. And they notice a Turkish gentleman walking along the street. And they're real suspicious. They hate Turks. Like, I don't know if any Turks are watching. Is that politically correct to say Turk? It sounds right. Well, no, it sounds. It's like a Michael Scott Mexican moment. I don't know. If there's any Turkish people watching this, I apologize. They said some hateful things. But hey, it was in character, man. It's just acting, like blackface. I don't know. Hey, let's move on. So eventually they follow this Turkish guy into the fanciest hotel in town, like the ritziest place. And there they find more Turkish people. And now they're really like, they might think that I'm just screwing with them. They might think I'm just throwing Turkish people around just to screw with them. I assure you I'm not. I'm not screwing with you just because you're suspicious of Turkish people. I mean, maybe some of the things I say like amps that up, but I don't just put Turkish people to just to. It's like if I just suddenly throw it around like, oh, there's a bunch of Taiwanese people around. Look, there's 4 of them right there. Like, no. Okay, so they pass some time with. I should mention that Killian and Pritchard went back to their former identities, William and Walter. And I could have made a stink about this if I was really, again, if we were running 100% realism, probably that the police would have caught on when they boarded the Orient Express and they showed their tickets that had their real names on it in Paris. They probably would have gotten busted, but that's not at all how I wanted to start a session, so. Because then it's like you can never get on the Orient Express, and it's just like make new character. No. So we don't do that. They got on the Orient Express. Move on. I like their original names better. So, okay. So Walter and Dingleberry are starting to write a book based on their Dreamlands adventures. This book will gain almost no popularity and will later be ripped off by a man known as Howard Phillips Lovecraft. I don't know. that might be the in-universe explanation. Okay, so they go back to the taxidermist shop and they meet Edgar Wellington. And taxidermy is just who the hell invented that shit? What is your problem, man? Taxidermy is not something that should exist. What if they did that for people? Why not? Why not do that for people? Like, what's the difference? That's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. I want a little card in my wallet that says, I allow blah, blah, blah after I'm dead to taxidize me. Or whatever the hell the term is. To stuff me. Now, that could be construed. Whatever the taxidized word is. I want to be the first human. How is that different than stuffing a moose? Oh, you might say it's different, but it's not. It's effed up. Anyways, So Edgar is very well. He takes them as customers first, so he starts talking about taxidermy stuff for them, and finally, William realizes that Edgar has been in the war, and he's kind of shell shocked, and so he's like, "Oh, my brother in arms!" You can imagine, and after he finds out that Edgar was in the war, and he's he bled blood in the same mud as William. William basically, he came out and he told him everything. Like, we're here. We saw your letter from the Lorians. We're here about the simulacrum. We want everything. Let's share information. And Edgar was like, well, he wasn't expecting this. They could have probably called ahead or something, sent a telegram, all sorts of stuff. But no, they kind of just threw this on him. And luckily, he was on the level. He wasn't like, oh, let me go get the scroll. You want to come? I'm going to go get the scroll in the back room. You should come with me. We'll go get it together. And then he dies. If I would have, oh, the scroll's in the back. I'm going to go get it. They probably would have been real suspicious. But no, he invited them up for tea, that's about as least suspicious as I really could get. He said basement, then yeah, that would have been bad. But upstairs, nothing bad happens upstairs. So they sit down upstairs and they drink some tea. William creeps into one of the workroom in the back on the first floor, and he just sees a bunch of taxidermy stuff, and he steals a glass eye. I don't know if he wrote it down. And he stole one glass eye. I don't know if he'll ever utilize it or what he will utilize it for, but he stole it. And so they all sitting down for some tea, and in comes William Wellington, Edgar's brother. And William is even more messed up from the war. His head is misshapen. He's mute, and he can't move his eyes. So he kind of has to just go like this, which would be really annoying. Anything I want to look at, because what if you're out of focus? You gotta that would be annoying. Anyways, I don't think they really took William as menacing. I think they just took him as retarded. Some retarded people are menacing, but it kind of depends. Usually the more hillbilly retarded is the menacing thing, if horror movies are to be believed. Upstanding retards are... That's probably more politically incorrect than Turks, but hey man, I'm from Wisconsin. I don't know if that excuses anything, but... What am I talking about? Oh yeah, so William just kind of sat there and stared at them for a while. And William Barth then came over to him right away and he's like, he was very misunderstood, William Barth. He thought that William Wellington had always been kind of messed up, and that the military just took him in and gave him a gun and put him out there. He didn't quite catch on that the war messed up William Wellington, so it was really funny. He didn't really realize that until they were having a conversation, Edgar and the rest of them, and William Barth, for some reason, pulled out his pistol, which is a German Mauser pistol. And so it's just why would you do that? So William Wellington immediately is he immediately starts freaking out. And Edgar's trying to calm him down. He's just like, whoa, dude, it's just, oh my God, it's so funny. Yeah, so they didn't really take him as anything sinister or malicious or anything. He's just there. Okay, so finally, they started talking about the scroll, and Edgar said that he acquired it during the war, trading it from a Frenchman in exchange for rations and cigarettes. He said the owner was named Raoul Malone. I think it's Malone, although I pronounced it Malone when I said it. I think it's Malone. Who said that it had been in his family for some time. Nobody caught on. I don't think anybody caught on at the time, and I don't really care if they know now, but So I'll just read it, that Raoul was a descendant of Louis Malon, the captain in charge of the raid on Comte Fenelix's mansion in 1789. It's not like it means anything. It doesn't change any facts. It's just that kind of explains it, you know. They didn't really ask him any other questions about the scroll. They just wanted to see it. They wanted to appraise it because Ziggy put points into the appraise skill, which as far as skills go in Call of Cthulhu, I'd say it's one of the least useful. Because that's like, I think that skill is there in case you want to make a character who runs a pawn shop. I think that's what it's there for. Because it's like, why, you know, I understand why he put points on it. It's kind of important for his character, but it's just like any other skill, like archaeology, would be so much more useful than appraise. Although, no, there could be uses, but the book, I don't think the book is ever going to mention appraise. I just kind of have to shoehorn it in places. So, of course, Ziggy wants to see the scroll. And Edgar says that there is another party interested in the scroll. Edgar has researched the scroll for a while, but he thinks that he's gotten all the use that he could out of it. So he needs some money because taxidermy's not being as lucrative as it could be, so he wants to sell the scroll. So another party is interested in buying it. And then the doorbell rings, and in comes the Duc de Asante. And hold on. I don't know if I want to say that. Well, I don't know. Okay, I won't say that now. I talked about that lengthily in Secrets of Rollmanging. But what I'm curious is, does anybody watch just the regular videos of these and not secrets that aren't part of the campaign? It doesn't bother me. I'm just curious on how much I want to repeat myself. Anyways, so where was I? Okay, so the Duc de Asante comes in, and he's a rather large, rotund man, dressed impeccably, and middle-aged Frenchman. And Edgar describes the Duke as an amateur occultist like himself. And so the Duke would also like to see the scroll before they start any sort of bidding war. And so Edgar suggests, because he does not have the scroll on him, it is in a bank vault. So he suggests that they all meet tonight for the 7:30 Club. 7:30 Club is an informal discussion group which meets at Le Chat Noir, which, if you know absolutely zero French, it means the black cat. Which is, of course, isn't there something famous called Le Chat Noir? I don't know, probably. And so okay. So they all agreed to go to this club at 7:30, and they all meet. He'll bring the scroll. They'll just have a nice evening. They'll do a bidding war. It'll be done. And before they all leave, though, Edgar suggests to the Duke that he give them a small tour of the town, if the investigators wish. They all liked that idea, and so the Duke's like, oh, of course. And so they're all about to go on the tour when Luton Templar says, I'm gonna hang back. I've got some stuff to do, or I'm gonna take a nap, some stuff like that. So he hangs back, and basically he just watches Edgar. Okay, so the Duke then took them on a small tour of Lausanne. He took them to the cathedral. He took them to the Musée Cantonal. He took them to kind of the Les Signal overlooking Lake Geneva and looking out on the mountains. And then he took them to Le Chat Noir and dropped them off there to show them where it was, and so they could get some food. And as he's about to leave, William Barth approaches him, and he says, he extends his hand. The Duke takes it, and William closes right in by his ear. And I'm like, what the hell is he gonna say? Because it seemed like they all kind of liked the Duke. I was like, what is he gonna say? And I think he said some derogatory things towards French people. Something about French people's actions during the war. And then he said, how I served in the war is how I'm going to serve in this, bid. So he basically threatened his life or something like that. To just back off from this thing. This is ours. And whatever. Back off, man. And he rolled really well on his intimidate. And so the Duke didn't really know what to say. He's just well, good evening, or you could till tonight, and he pretty much left. And I really thought they were gonna follow the Duke, but they didn't. I was surprised by that. And so they pretty much then just passed time until 7:30. Now Luton Templar watched Edgar kind of go around town. He went to the bank. He picked up the scroll. He bought some cigarettes. He went to a pharmacist and came out with a bag of something. And then he went to a stationer's shop. And he went back to his home. And he never left. Well, at least until 7:30. By then Luton was still staying outside, and he didn't leave yet. Edgar had not come out. And so the others all went to the 7:30 club, but nobody was there. It was just them, just the three of them. Finally, around 8, a man shows up who introduces himself as Maximilian von Wertheim. And he apologizes for the Duke and for Wellington, who both had last-minute business. He'll be along as soon as possible. And he's German. And he's very proud of his Prussian lineage. And he's at a dinner table with William Barth. It's not going to end well. And so Walter Umberly quickly excuses himself. And because he realizes Luton's not there and he wonders what's up. So he excuses himself and he goes back to the shop where Luton is waiting. Luton, around 7:30-ish, decides that he's had enough of this waiting bullshit. He thinks something's up. So he goes around back and breaks into Wellington's shop. He picks both locks on the gate and the door, walks in, and then he calls out for Edgar while inside. And William comes stomping down the stairs, he's ready to go with this intruder. He's furious because he can clearly see that, these doors have been broken into. And so Luton tries to explain himself, and again, William can't speak, so he writes on pieces of paper. And so he basically tells him that Edgar's sleeping and you leave now. And so Luton does leave. He goes back and he just kind of stays and watches. And then Walter Umberly shows up. They kind of explain the situation, Edgar hasn't left yet. Where is he? Where's the Duke? What's going on? And they see the Duke waltzing down the street. So again, they get real hidden and they're watching. And they see the Duke, go to the front door. William opens, and the Duke enters, and the door closes. They're like, oh shit, we gotta get in there. Something's up. We gotta get in there. So they go around back yet again. The gate hadn't been relocked, but the back door had. So they pick that lock again. They get in, and they hear a scuffle from upstairs immediately. So they go upstairs, and they find 3 closed doors. Oh, they only went through one before into the kitchen. So they try the one on the left. And boom, there's Edgar on the bed. Dead. And as they're kind of just looking around a little bit, they hear just this very quick movement from behind them as it goes down the stairs. And before they can even catch up to it, it's boom, it's gone. Through the alleyways into the night mist. I think they strongly suspected it was the Duke. So they go in the kitchen, and they find William Wellington butchered on the floor. Just knife wounds everywhere. Everywhere. It's like those girls that were working for Slender Man. That's probably inappropriate, but, you know. You know me. I'm from Wisconsin. So are they. So I'm crazy. I don't know. Anyways. Yeah, so he's butchered, and, like, there's a flap of skin missing from his back. I should have said it was in, like, a jigsaw pattern. That would have been funny. I guess it wouldn't really be funny. It would have been... they probably would have thought I was joking. And the expression on his face is one of utmost horror. And a 1d6 sanity loss if they fail. That's big. 1d6 just for seeing a dead body. That's crazy. It was 0/1 to see Edgar. So I guess he was really mutilated. And so finally... Okay, so around this time... Maximilian von Wertheim had been telling his whole life story to William Barth and Dingleberry. So William Barth just got fed up with this bullshit. The bill came, and William said that he forgot his wallet. So William Barth actually paid for it, he did that. I was very surprised he did that. But I think he wanted to get Maximilian out of there to really question him. So I think he just was like, whatever, I'll pay the bill. So they go outside, and immediately William Barth puts his pistol to Maximilian's kidney. He's like, we're going to go to that shop, and you're going to tell me everything you know. And I think he failed his Intimidate roll. Even with a bonus die, he failed twice. It was just not his shiny moment. And then I think he failed to pistol whip him as well. It was just sad. So he's just like, Dingleberry, do something. So Dingleberry played the good cop to William's bad cop. He's like, he used his persuade. He's like, hey man, he's crazy. Just tell me what you know. And he succeeded, of course. So Maximilian basically said that he's friends with the Duke. He doesn't know what happened to your friends. All he was told was to just distract you guys for a while. He doesn't know why. And he seemed like he was telling the truth. So William just kicked him in the ass as hard as he could, knocked him on his face. He's just like, get out of here. And so he ran away. And so they finally go to the shop. They all get back together. And Luton kind of searches the whole upstairs. And he finds Edgar's diary. Finds a receipt for some wax and some parchment. He finds a green bottle, mostly full, on which the label says Dream Lausanne. He finds an empty morphine bottle and an emptied syringe. And he finds a scroll underneath the bed, which most of them realize quite quickly is a fake. And yeah, okay. I actually forgot about that step. I should have mentioned that. The police were supposed to pop up if the front door was left open. I don't know if I didn't mention it. Oh well. I don't like involving the police too much. It's just kind of boring. Some investigators may choose to alert the police at once before searching anything. Who are these people playing Call of Cthulhu? Guys, don't touch anything. We we gotta go tell the police. I just can't, I can't see ever playing with a group like that. I'd be amazed. I would be like, what? It actually says, you know, it gives you a little info here. Here it says, others may choose to give themselves up when the police arrive. The next day, Max and the Duke will make accusations against them, and the investigators are arrested. Jesus Christ. Because if you do that, you, like, miss the Orient Express. You, like, screw everything up. Okay. And actually, there was a pretty big thing here that I changed. Okay, so I think how it's supposed to work, at least outlined in the book, is the Orient Express doesn't stop at Lausanne. It just keeps going. I mean, it stops if people want to get off, but it doesn't sit there for a day. It keeps going, and then the next day, the next Orient Express comes in, and they get on that. But then I would have to have a different conductor, and they would have different compartment. You know, it would just be a new Orient Express. I didn't like that, because Katerina continues on the Orient Express because she wants to go to Milan right away. She doesn't want to sit in Lausanne. So I had to change that because I was like, I want the same thing the whole time. So I was like, the Orient Express just sits there for a day, and Katerina just gets her own car and she goes ahead to Milan. And so by doing so, I nullify any reason that the investigators would ever stay at a hotel, because they have the Orient Express, and I like it that way. It's not realistic at all, but I prefer it that way. Okay. Because it doesn't really change that much mechanically, because it's still like the Orient Express comes through at 6:45 a.m. You know, the next day. They better be on it. Here it's just the Orient Express leaves at 6:45. They better be on it. You know, it's the same thing. Okay, so they read the diary, and I won't read the whole diary, but basically it says that the Duke has some occult books, which are occultish, and Edgar was on the trail of this simulacrum, but he just couldn't really find it. And the Duke has given me something for my insomnia. I slept deeply and had a most vivid dream of Lausanne in olden times. And then he realizes that when he can bring stuff from the waking world into the dreaming world. And when he awoke, it was gone. So he realized, and this is basically for the investigator's benefits, that you can bring things from the waking world into the dreaming world and leave them there. And so now it then mentions that he hid the scroll in Dream Lausanne for safekeeping. And so that it's basically like, hey guys, the scroll is not here. It's in the dream world that you need to go to with this drug that's clearly labeled Dream Lausanne. They all picked up on it pretty quickly. They're not that dumb. So there was a lot of talk when they got back to the train about who's gonna use this drug. You know, who's gonna go to Dream Lausanne, and they were like, oh, well, we should have somebody keep watch. We should have somebody keep watch. And Umberly volunteered. And he's like, I'll be here with my rapier. And I was just like, Walter Umberly is going to skip out on this adventure? What a shock. You know, I was really upset. I was like, there's no way I can let him just miss out. And like, it would have been another hour and a half or something like that. He still would have heard everything, but it's just like, that's not what we do here. And it's like, I know they're trying to be really smart. I get it. In the real world, if this was a real thing we were doing, yes, you would stand watch. I guarantee it. I would be like, you're damn right you're stand and watch. But no, just play the game. Oh. Like, you really think I'm that type of person? It's like, oh, they're all asleep. The Duke slips in while you're all sleeping. He stabs you in the throat. TPK, make new characters. Like, I'm not that bad of a DM. Oh, my God. then it's either like, if he did stand watch, nothing happens, because nothing was going to happen. Because either nothing happens and you just have to sit there and listen while I do all this, which is like, well, you might as well just go play something else and just listen to us talk. Or I have to have something happen, and then it's just like, just take the damn drug. And so all four of them took the drug, but they did tell Giuseppe, the conductor, that they had kind of a rough day and they don't want to be disturbed. And so, of course, Giuseppe was like, he's like, hell hath no fury like a protecting conductor, or something like that. So they all take the dream drug. They all wake up on the Dream Orient Express, but not the Dreamlands Orient Express. It was more just like a dream version of the real Orient Express. And they noticed that they couldn't move the blinds. There was just bright white light behind them. And there was one door on the carriage that just could not be budged at all. It was just, there was like decay smell coming from behind it. But they just could not do it. So finally they got off the train after it stops. And they're in just like a wasteland. Just gray wasteland everywhere. Except for a door standing about 30 yards from them. So they approach the door. And they're suddenly in the Wellington's taxidermy shop. Oh, actually, let me mention one other thing. Okay, so when they went from the real world to the Dreamlands for the first time, I made a note of asking all of them what stuff they were carrying with them, what they had on them when they passed out. The only thing really of note was Walter Umberlee's pocket watch. And when he checked it in the Dreamlands, he found out it had become a miniature sundial. And so this gave them all pretty much a strong hint of what's going on here. And so I think Walter Umberlee tried to warn William Barth. He's like, maybe you shouldn't take the gun, look at what happened to my pocket watch. He's like, get out of here. So he puts the pocket watch, he puts the gun in his mouth when he takes the drug. And when he wakes up in the dream version, he suddenly has a small crossbow in his mouth. And I'll spoil it for you right now because, I remember. When he wakes up later on, it's still a crossbow. His gun is gone forever. And he got really pissed because that was like his thing. Like he had that Mauser pistol. That was his unique thing. And now it's just a freaking crossbow. And so if any of them were watching, I'll explain it to you. Basically, it has to do with the technology has to become fixed in the real world. It has to be around in the real world for at least 500 years. And so, I guess technically, Ziggy's rapier probably should have changed to a more primitive weapon, but I don't care about that. The gun that's the main point. That's the main point is you can't bring guns and explosives into the dream world. Dreamlands or dream cities, whatever. Okay. Anyways, so no guns. Deal with it. That's not what the dream stuff is about. Okay, so they're in the taxidermy shop, and they notice that everything in there has become very primitive as well. There's torches on the wall, basically. And there's no refrigeration, so everything kind of reeks and smells horrible, and it's just, oh, God. See, this is what taxidermy brings. See? And the second story rooms, the doors on the second floor are completely unmovable. They can't get in at all. I'm 54 minutes in. What the hell have I been talking about? I mean, we're kind of near the end, but all right, I'm gonna really speed this up. I don't want this to go too long. Okay, so basically, they eventually go out into the streets, and they notice everybody kind of dressed in medieval garb and heading towards this tolling bell. So they kind of follow along, and you'd think they just follow the group and they get there, but there's all sorts of different events that happen, so I had to go through all of them, and I was just like, I'm just going to be reading these, so whatever. So I'll read the events while we're here. First one, a gaping fissure splits the middle of an empty street. From the fissure, an icy wind blasts outward, moaning down the street. Players cannot go up the street as the wind is so strong. Second event, a group of grotesquely clothed people passes, masked and cowled, costume as death, an angel, a medieval soldier, a lion, a Turk, an assassin, and a rustic lad. They are flagellants who wind in procession through the chaos, weeping tears of blood from startling, expressionless, china blue dolls' eyes. They chant in Latin as they move, and the reek of incense and a distant cacophony of bells follows them. As the bells reach a crescendo, the lion figure sprouts wings and flies away, closely pursued by the soldier. Their bloody tears fall on the investigators from above and scald them. And they did realize that a winged lion is the symbol of Venice, a city which was surrendered to a soldier named Napoleon. One street is strewn with flowers and bulbs which give off clear, sweet smells. They are garlic plants, and they noted that no shadows existed on that street. And I think Luton took a garlic plant with him. Fourth event, an old woman stirs a huge black cauldron and offers the investigators dinner. Only Dingleberry stepped forward, and he saw that the pot was full of skinned, writhing human limbs, slightly steaming. Fifth event, a street magician displays an empty hat. He inserts first his right arm, then his left, then his right leg, and finally his left leg into the hat. Each time he does this, his limb is taken by the hat and vanishes. Finally, collapsing to the ground, laughing hysterically, the magician asks for someone from the audience to retrieve his limbs from the hat. Only Dingleberry stepped forward, and he found nothing, but he put the hat back on the guy. Sixth event, at a strangely quiet intersection, the investigators witness a disturbing scene. A gigantic chessboard has been set into the cobblestones, and at either side of the board stands a motionless statue, one black, one white, the players. They are humanoid, yet featureless, and androgynous. On the board, people occupy the positions of chess pieces. Each person carries a knife. These pieces begin to move as if a normal chess game was taking place. As one piece takes another, the victor cuts the throat of the loser. Play speeds in human quickness. Soon the board is littered with corpses, the black player triumphing over the white. After the final move, which grants the black player victory, the white player cracks noisily and falls to pieces, and the black player's statue gratingly turns its head to regard the investigators. This reminds me a whole lot from a part from the first Gentleman Bastards book, I think. That has nothing to do with anything. Anyways. Seventh event, final one. In the middle of a deserted square, another statue stands. It is large, very large, size 100, and made of wire with what appears to be rags hanging from it. As you get closer, you notice that the wire has been crazily woven into a human shape, and that the rags are scraps of flesh snagged on cruel barbs and hooks. From the head emerges the sweetest sound the investigators have ever heard. It is like an angel singing, a voice of perfect clarity. The sound brings tears to the eyes of the listeners, and they flee weeping from the square before their hearts can break. Okay, so finally then they got to where the bell was tolling, which was the town center, and there, up on like a platform, was a statue, Edgar Wellington, and a hooded man. They join the crowd. The hooded man starts speaking, and they quickly realize it's the Duke, who now refers to himself as the Prince. And he basically is, this man is guilty, but we will, will anybody, defend this man, blah, blah, blah. And of course, all the investigators then step up. And the Prince is just kind of like, But if they had rolled a psychology, which, why, what do they care? He was really pissed. He's really pissed. And so then, he says, "Is there one among you who wishes to offer himself to justice?" And the crowd just goes crazy on one dude that he points out. They beat him to death and they skin him alive. And the sanity loss for the other guy, them witnessing this, is 2/1d6 plus 1. So that could have been really bad. They could have gone, temporary insane from that. And he puts this skin that the guy they just got, he puts it on the statue and it becomes kind of alive. And he's like, "You will judge this court, blah, blah, blah. The proceedings." And so then basically they have like a ace attorney court session. The Prince issues his 3 kind of charges against Edgar Wellington, and the investigators had to defend against it. They did not do amazing. It started off, their first defense was Dingleberry flicking off the Prince. So it wasn't great attempts. And it wasn't supposed to be easy. It was not meant to be an easy task for them to do. Just defend it. They're in this dream place, and they're very oppressed. And just like, defend this guy. It's not meant to be easy. And like, imagine doing that in, real life, I guess. So his 3 charges were basically 1, that this guy resisted arrest, 2, that he's a foreigner, and 3, that he hid something from the prince. And so kind of the whole point was that none of their earthly laws apply here. Like, none of their earthly knowledge has anything to do with it. This is just craziness. So they defended it all right, I guess. It wasn't terrible. If I was strict, they probably would have failed. And I think they knew that, because they're like, how did we succeed? But it's much more exciting if they succeed. So yeah, they succeeded. The prince got really upset. And Edgar was freed, so they all kind of leave the square. But then the prince is like, those foreign bastards are conspirators. Find them and kill them. And so the crowd roars and starts chasing them. So then you have your epic chase scene, where Dingleberry volunteers as a distraction. And so he basically leads them in a separate direction. And I'm like, all right, roll dex. He fails his dex roll. I'm like, you can push it if you want. And of course he wants to do it, because he wants to die. I know you, Dingleberry. I know you want to die. Not on my watch. So he pushes the roll, and he rolls a 2. Not dying with rolls like that. And so he succeeds very well. The others all get to back to the taxidermist shop. And Edgar retrieves the scroll, which was hidden inside the rotting, festering bear corpse, and just blood is showering all over the place as I got it. And so William Bart just grabs me, like, back to the train. And so then swoops in Dingleberry, like Shadow in Final Fantasy VI when you're on the floating continent. And they all run over to the train. They board the train. The mob's like chasing behind them. It's like, and they get away. And so the train starts to solidify into real world as the dream world fades away. And so fades Edgar Wellington. Because he's dead. He doesn't get to leave the dream world. That's where he is. And so they lose a little bit of sanity for that, because that's messed up. And thus, they woke up in the real world, still in those on, but readying to leave. And that's where we ended. We're like right at the end of this section. I so wanted to just get rid of this section, because there's like this one final. It's exactly like a movie where it's like so there's like a twist, which is kind of spoilery, I know, but it's kind of like a movie where there's just like one final thing. It's like, whoa, and then it ends. And it was like 11:15, and Ziggy's just like, well, we're ending, so they didn't want me to badger him. They were just like, all right, we can end. Fine. I mean, it'll get done either way, but I wanted to share it. But I guess this video's been going on long enough. So, yes, they had some harrowing adventures, but now they have knowledge of the dream lands and dream worlds and all sorts of stuff. And so they can go back to the dream lands whenever they wish, whenever they sleep. But it's probably going to be like whenever they sleep. Basically, they want to go back. So I imagine we'll be going through that fairly quickly. Other than that, though, it's on to Milan for a opera performance they will never forget. And I will talk about that in Secrets of Roll Manging. But for now, my name is Mang. This has been Roll Manging for Horror on the Orient Express. I'll see you fine folks next week.